Hey guys, welcome to Quinian's Budget Crafts. Time to do the mast and the rigging. So I don't know if you've ever noticed, but large masts aren't actually one huge 100-foot long telephone pole. They're made out of several pieces that get smaller as it goes up. To try and copy that, we'll use 4 dowel sizes here. The biggest one is 7/8 of an inch, the next is 5/8 of an inch. The smallest one is 1/2 inch, and then there's a little tiny dowel on the very top. I'm not sure what size they are, they're the ones you get in a large pack. The sizes you'll want to cut these if you're following along is 2 of the 7/8 cut to 16 inches and 12 inches, 3 of the 5/8 cut to 8 inches, 8 inches, and 12 inches, 4 of the 1/2 inch ones cut to 6, 6, 8, and 4.5 inches. The little dowels just cut in half. They'll be 4 inches when you do that. And then we'll be putting them together something like this. They're cut like this so that the first cross beam of the bottommost sail, along with the other sails, are all the same height, even though the mounting height on the deck is a little different from pole to pole. Once you get all of those cut out, you need to paint them up. Starting out with burnt umber, moving through tan and yellow, like you did on the ship itself. But this time, when we do the dry brushing, we're going to go a little heavy with it and just rub in anything that gets a little too noticeable. You'll also need some cross beams to hold the sails. I forgot what size these are, they're about the thickness of a pencil, but you're going to need 3 of them cut to 14 inches, 3 of them cut to 10 inches, and 3 of them cut to 8 inches. Just paint them like everything else. As for mounting the masts on the ship, I'm going to use some PVC bushings. You could use PVC caps if you want, but I prefer the hex nut thing that the bushing has on the bottom. And why a nearly 1-inch dowel fits into a 1/2 inch PVC piece, I have no idea, but it does. The inside of the bushing has this little lip that keeps the dowel from going in, but that's easy to cut out. There's also a little gap around the dowel, but I'll show you how to fill that in. One of the bottom masts, the 5/8 inch one, needs a smaller bushing, so I'm not sure what size I went with here. I think it's a 1/4 inch. It's got a little bit of a wobble, but we'll fix that. You could go with the PVC cap if you want to, but it doesn't have as much stuff on the bottom to grab where you're gluing it, and it does have this weird little rim that might be hard to remove or hide. If you don't like the hex nut shape though, you can go ahead and sand or file that off into a smooth circle. Anyway, no matter what you decide, go ahead and peel those stickers off and then sand the whole thing a little bit. You need to rough up the surface so that your primer can have something to grab onto. I found that just holding the sandpaper in place and then spinning the PVC worked a little easier than trying to move the sandpaper around. Once you've got them all done up how you want, go ahead and take them outside and spray them with some primer. To cut out that little lip on the inside, just lay it on the mat and run your X-Acto around in a circle like this. Don't go too crazy though, just a little at a time until it fits. Once it fits well enough, grab some DAS clay and start packing it in the gap. You could use the Crayola stuff, but it's really light and I actually want the weight of the DAS. Just mash it in and then take a small dowel or whatever's handy and tamp it down all the way around. If you want to leave it built up, you can use a wet brush with some water on it to smooth it over like this, but the more I did it, the more it looked strange to me. So I changed my mind and decided to let it dry so I could do something else. In the meantime, while those are drying, let's finish painting the masts. Like I said, we're being kind of heavy-handed here and just rubbing in anything that stands out too much. If you've already done the tan and yellow, now we're going to go one extra step. Mix antique white, light blue, and a dab of the yellow together and then dry brush with this. That'll give you that weather-worn, cracked, old, little bit of bird poo look. If your clay is mostly dry, now you can use a knife to just trim off the excess that was sticking out of the top. Get the cut started and follow the flat top of the PVC. Don't worry, you're not going to cut into the PVC. Just go slow and saw back and forth until you get to the other side. And then go ahead and paint them up the same way you did the cannons or whatever other variation of metal would work fine too. To actually put the mast together, line them up on the mat so that there's a 1-inch overlap. Roll one of them a little bit, put a line of hot glue on there, roll it back and smush them together. This really only works for the 2 medium-sized ones, but it's a good starting point. Add more glue in the gap to both sides to make sure that it's going to stay. For the very top one, put glue on, stick the little dowel on, and then very quickly put it back on the mat and adjust so it's got the same 1 inch overlap. Pick it up again and make sure it's straight, adjust if you need to, and hold until the glue is dry enough for it to stay there. And then of course add a little more to the gaps. Now take the whole thing you've got going on, lay it on the mat with the biggest one, making sure that you get that 1 inch overlap, and do the glue and roll trick. Now this will be off a little bit, so pick it up and turn it to where you can see the alignment and roll it over until all 3 of the other ones are lined up with the bottom one, and then hold until dry. Again, more glue in the gaps, and there you go. Real quick, the way these go together is the 2 longer middle ones with a top piece, and then the big ones with everything else. Now because I don't have anything that would work for a metal clamp normally used with these, I'm going to go with an old school method of lashing. Just take a little bit of jute cord, reheat the hot glue, and then stick the end of the cord in there. And then just wrap up the entire joint. This will reinforce it, hide the glue, and look pretty cool. To end the wrapping, pinch it so it doesn't come undone, leave a little excess, and then thread the end of your string through the excess twice. Pull it all tight. You might need to pull 1 wrap at a time because its cord sticks to itself pretty well. Cut off the tail, and then add some liquid super glue all around the top and bottom of the wrap so it doesn't go anywhere. For the cross pieces, one of the short ones, just set it aside. The longest one goes on the bottom, and so on. Now normally these would be hanging out in front of the mast and dangling from ropes so that they could be adjusted, but very, very old ships that didn't use rigging did it this way, and for playability, I'd like to do it like this too. Full rigging would be a huge mess of strings. Just put a drop of glue on the back of the mast where they overlap, stick the cross piece on the glue dot, and then put the end of a string down the other side of your wrapping where the first one wasn't. And now wrap the cross piece on. However you want to wrap this is fine, I just did overlapping X's. When you get to the end, do the same thing as before. A couple passes through some slack, pull it tight, and glue it so it won't unravel. For the piece sticking out the bottom, just reach up in there with the tip of the X-Acto and cut it off. And then add a drop of liquid superglue to make sure it's not going anywhere. Alright, now that the masts are built, we need to find a way to attach them to the deck. Set your bushings wherever you want them. For the middle one, there's that nice thick slab of EPX under it, so you can carve out a little hole for the glue to grab onto. Now just pump a ton of hot glue in there. Try not to hit the sides if you can. Once you get this as full as you want, lift the edge a hair and then set it back down quickly. This will allow some of the glue to seep out so you get it on the underside of the rim without worrying about any squeeze out. Go ahead and do that to all 3, and then pull off the front and rear panels and glue a bit of square dowel to the underside where your mount is. Without the EPX below it, this is too flimsy, but the dowel will fix that. You could paint the dowel if you want, but you'll never see this part, so it's up to you. Okay, now my camera angles are gonna get stupid. The ship itself barely fits in my crafting space, and now the masts are so tall it doesn't fit under the light. We need platforms on these, so cut out 4 1 by 2 inch bits of foam, texture them with the wire brush, and set aside. We're also going to need little things on the side of the ship that the net connects to. For this, we'll use the same thing we've been using for the hull planking. Cut out 8 2-inch long strips and glue them into an L shape. Don't forget to texture them. Just remember that if the texture is running the length of the board, then the end of the board, the short end there, will have the wood grain up and down instead of going side to side longways. Once those are all cut out and textured, go ahead and paint them up how you've been doing everything so far. For the nets, oh boy, if someone knows a better way, please let me know. What I did was figure out how long a string I needed to go from the platform to the side of the ship, plus a little bit extra to work with. Take 5 strings and tie them into a knot on one end, and then tape that to the mat. Find the outermost strings, tape them down 2 inches apart on the other end, and then tape the remaining 3 evenly spaced. Then just start weaving, over, under, forever. Use a bit of super glue on the connection points. You really only need this on the bottom 2 and top 2 rows. and it'll be attached something like this. You'll need 4 of them this length for the platform to ship side. Then you're going to need another 4 to go from platform to platform up the mast. I ran out of super glue, so I don't have those yet. For the part on the platform, just fold it over, glue a coffee stick over the end of it, and snip off any excess. For the ship side though, we still want those to be removable. So, thread the ends of the 5 strings through a bead that you like. I'm using these barrel beads. Put a drop of super glue in there to make sure that they stay on, and then snip off the excess string. Then hot glue them to the L-shaped thingies that you made. These fit just perfect in here. The backs of the L's will have magnets on them. We've done that enough, you know how that works. Don't worry about the shiny spots from the magnets, we'll paint over that when we start cutting holes for the cannons and such. I started out with 2 magnets here, but it wasn't holding as well as I'd like, so I went ahead and did 3 magnets per L. There you go, it just stays on like so, and when you want to put it away or take the mast down to play on the deck only or whatever, you can remove it all. For the front mast, this is where those other small mast bits are used. Just glue and tie them up like the others, and it should sit something like this. Now, to hold it in place and also keep it removable, we'll use, yep, you guessed it, magnets. I'm using little dice-shaped beads here, because if you haul out the hole just a little bit more, you can get a magnet to fit in there perfectly. And then, there's a hole on the other side to put a string in. Just put them on either side of your pole, make a little mark where the deck magnets go, then once you have that all sorted out, glue a string into the top of one of them, put it over the back part of the mast, glue it to that, and then put the other end of the string in the other bead and glue that down. This should look a little something like mounts or equipment or whatever. You could paint these metal if you wanted to. You could also repaint these beads to match the rest of the wood, but I kinda like that they're different. I got it all standing up and went, something's missing. We need some nest on the very top. So cut out a 2x2 inch square, put a jar on it to make a little circle impression like this, and then follow the circle with a nice sharp X-Acto. Sand it down to make sure it's all good and smooth, nice neat curve. You could add a rail to this, but I don't think ghost pirates really care about OSHA safety rules. Cut a notch in it just wide and deep enough for it to clear the mast. Now take some of that double thick stuff we've been using, cut a little chunk off at 45 degrees on both ends. If you're using the Fisker's mat, it has a handy little 45-degree line that you can use. Don't forget your texture, and then just glue this thing to the front edge of the platform, and paint it all up. You don't need to worry about Mod Podge here. And it should sit something like this. You won't need the 45-degree one on the front platform because there will be a string in the way. So the last thing that you're going to want to do, but I can't show you on video, is to run 2 strings from the front mast to the mast behind it. Just wrap it near the middle, run the string up to the second joint, then again wrap it near the tip and run that up to the top joint. Make sure that they are as even as possible. Everything is nice and straight. That front mast is not being pulled off the deck or anything. Everything's good to go. Go ahead and add liquid super glue and completely soak both strings. These strings will be used to hold sails later. Speaking of sails, guys, there is an open to the public poll on my Patreon page asking what color I should make them. So go on over there and tell me what you think. If you'd like to help select the next build by vote, there is a Patreon exclusive poll up just for that too. Or if you feel like just being awesome, I have a link to coffee in the description below. Thank you for watching everybody, and don't forget to like, share, all that good stuff, and I'll catch you on the next one.